That evening, when I graduated with honors from the University of Texas at Austin, my family gave my twin sister, Olivia, a new Tesla. I received a $50 gift card to Frank's Diner. "You're the practical one," my mother, Linda, whispered, laughing like it was our shared joke. They stood there, beaming, as Olivia posed for photos against the glossy black hood, while my fingers gripped the cheap cardboard of the gift card. I smiled my calmest, most measured smile, nodded, and said, "You're right, Mom. I am very practical." They didn't know that 3 days earlier I had used that practicality to sit in on a video conference with my grandfather's lawyers. They didn't know I had just exercised the power of attorney he secretly gave me to review every account they had been bleeding dry for years. And they certainly didn't know that while they were picking out the interior color for the Tesla, I was signing the documents that executed his will's irresponsible behavior cause, cutting them out of a $10 million inheritance. The real bankrupt one in our family wasn't me. They just hadn't realized it yet. Being a twin is a strange thing. The world expects you to be reflections, two halves of a whole. But in our family, Olivia and I were never equals. She was the sun, and I was the shadow that proved the sun was shining. Olivia is the golden child. She's charming, flighty, and disastrously irresponsible. She dropped out of college after one semester, claiming traditional education stifles her creativity. My parents, Mark and Linda, ate it up. They are obsessed with image, and Olivia is their perfect project. She's living proof that they are successful, modern parents raising a free spirit. Every 6 months, Olivia had a new startup they proudly funded. First, a travel blog, which required a trip to Greece for content. Then, a line of artisanal, handmade soaps, which ended when she realized she'd have to make the soap. Her latest venture was becoming a lifestyle influencer, which apparently required a constant stream of cash for designer clothes and dinners at Austin's most expensive restaurants. And then there was me, Elara, the practical one, the reliable one. So smart. These were all code words for boring and useful. While Olivia was finding herself, I got a scholarship to the UT finance program. While she spent money, I learned how to manage it. Have you ever been the accountant for your own family? Not just the responsible one, but the one who actually makes sure the lights stay on? I became this family's unofficial accountant at 16. I remember the quiet terror when my father, Mark, failed to close a big real estate deal and his commissions dried up. I heard the hushed, panicked arguments at night. I saw the past due notices my mom hid under a pile of magazines. Olivia never noticed. She was busy picking out a prom dress. I was already working by then, not just a coffee shop job, but remote bookkeeping for 3 small businesses. I started small. "Mom, here's $200 for groceries. Dad, I can cover the internet bill this month." They never asked where a 17-year-old was getting this money. They just took it. They smiled, called me their little savior, and quickly changed the subject to how Olivia almost got the lead in the school play. When I went to college, my workload and income increased. I became the one who quietly covered the mortgage deficit when Dad had a slow quarter. I was the one who paid off Olivia's $3,000 credit card bill after her research trip to New York. I did it quietly. I thought that if I just held our pretty house together hard enough, one day they would see me. What a fool I was. They didn't just fail to see my sacrifices. They failed to notice them. It was normal for them that Olivia created expenses and I covered them. They praised her creativity, which cost me thousands, while expecting me to be the silent, efficient machine that paid for it all. I was their financial safety net, their invisible support. So, yes, the Tesla and the $50 gift card. This wasn't the start of something new. This was just the culmination of my entire life. The only difference was that this time they did it in public, and they did it at the exact moment my practicality had finally turned from a family insurance policy into a weapon. The graduation dinner was at McKinley's, an expensive downtown Austin steakhouse. My parents' choice, of course. A see and be seen kind of place, all dark wood, crystal glasses, and waiters in starched white jackets. Our entire extended family was there, my aunts, uncles, and a few cousins, all witnesses to Elara's big day. I sat there clutching a menu that cost more than my weekly food budget, listening to my father, Mark, tell a loud anecdote about golf. All right, settle down, he finally said, tapping a spoon against his glass. He stood up, his face flushed with wine and self-satisfaction. Thank you all for coming out to celebrate. As you know, our family has always valued success. He raised his glass in my general direction. We are so proud of Elara. She's the smart one, always had her nose in a book. That was it. That was my entire acknowledgement. 4 years of a double major, sleepless nights, and working until dawn, all reduced to nose in a book. Before I could even muster a polite smile, he turned to Olivia, and his entire face lit up. But tonight, he continued, his voice booming, we are also celebrating Olivia's bold new step. She's not just following trends, she's setting them. Her new lifestyle influencer brand is about to explode. I saw my Aunt Martha give the slightest eye roll, but the rest of the family looked on with rapt attention. My mother was watching my father like he was announcing world peace. Olivia is building an empire, Dad declared. But, as they say, you can't build an empire driving around in an old beater. She drove a 3-year-old BMW that I had helped pay for. Linda? My mother, Linda, stood up, her eyes shining with dramatic fake moisture. She was holding a single velvet box. Not a ring box, but too small for a bracelet. Olivia, sweetheart, Mom said, her voice cracking with pretend emotion, we know how hard you've been working on your image. And an image needs support. She opened the box. Inside wasn't a key, but a sleek black Tesla key fob. There was a half second of silence in the restaurant before Olivia let out a shriek that probably registered on the valet stand. Oh my God! Are you serious? It's the Model 3 Performance Edition, Dad announced proudly. The relatives erupted in applause. My Aunt Martha was clapping, but she looked stunned. The cousins were shouting, whoa! Olivia was weeping, hugging Mom and Dad, smearing her mascara. It was an Oscar-worthy scene. I sat there and clapped along with everyone, my face frozen in a polite mask. This was my graduation dinner. It was only when the excitement died down and Olivia had sat and immediately started taking pictures of the key fob that my mother seemed to remember me. Oh, Elara, honey, she said, as if just noticing me. We didn't forget you. She dug into her Michael Kors handbag, another bill I'd paid, and pulled out a small, thin paper envelope, the kind you get at a gas station checkout. We know you're not into all this, she said, winking at the rest of the table like we were in on a secret together. I opened it, a $50 gift card to Frank's Diner, a greasy spoon I went to in high school because they had dollar coffee. She then leaned in and whispered, but loud enough for the whole family to hear, you're the practical one. We know you appreciate hard work. Here, go get yourself a nice lunch. The laughter from the table was polite, but it pierced right through me. I looked at my dad, beaming, proud of his generosity. I looked at Olivia, who hadn't even looked up from her phone. And I looked at my mother, smiling at me, expecting my gratitude. I slowly folded the card. I looked right in her eyes, letting her see that I wasn't fazed. "You're right, Mom," I said, just as quietly. "I am very practical." My parents always made the same mistake. They assumed the money they spent was theirs. They forgot where it actually came from. They forgot about my grandfather, Arthur Madison. Arthur is my mother's father. He is the anti-Austin. He's not new money, he's old Chicago steel. He built his logistics empire from scratch based on two things: discipline and numbers. He despises flash, he despises waste, and most of all, he despises people who don't keep their word. He never particularly liked my father, Mark, calling him an empty suit. He loved my mother, Linda, but was deeply disappointed by her evolution into a socialite. While Olivia was busy being charming, I was the one who called Grandfather Arthur every Sunday, not out of duty, but because we spoke the same language. He'd ask about my macroeconomics class, I'd ask him about the bond market. To my parents, my practicality was a boring flaw. To Arthur, it was the only thing that mattered. My remote job, the one that paid for my tuition and covered Olivia's debts, that was Arthur. It started 2 years ago. His longtime accountant retired, and he, in his old man stubbornness, trusted no one. "Elara," he said over the phone, "I'm paying some idiot in a suit $500 an hour to confuse me about my own money. You know Excel, want to make a few bucks?" It started with simple reconciliations, then an audit of his personal spending, and then we both saw it. I saw the $20,000 monthly gift he had transferred to my mother's account. And I saw how 48 hours later, that money would vanish to pay off Olivia's credit cards, to invest in my father's failing side projects, to lease luxury cars. All those times I had saved them by paying the mortgage. I wasn't saving them from ruin. I was just plugging the holes they had burned through Arthur's generous allowance before he noticed. They were living a double life, spending his money, and when that ran out, taking mine. A year ago, Grandfather Arthur, his health failing, flew me to Chicago. He was pale, but his eyes were sharp as razors. "They're acting like spoiled children, Elara," he told me in his study, which smelled of mahogany and old books. "And I'm done being their allowance." That day, I walked out of his lawyer's office as not just his bookkeeping assistant. I walked out with full notarized power of attorney over all his assets. I was named the sole executor of his $10 million estate. The will contained a clause we had drafted together, the irresponsible behavior clause. It gave me, as executor, full discretion to alter or nullify any bequests to Linda and Mark if they were deemed to be continuing a fiscally reckless and irresponsible lifestyle. Buying an $80,000 car for a non-working daughter using money they thought was a gift, all while their other daughter was graduating college, I'd call that fiscally reckless. So, as I sat there clutching my $50 gift card, I wasn't the victim, I was the auditor, and I had just completed my review. The waiter came by to clear the plates. I caught his eye and said politely, "Excuse me, could you point me to the ladies' room?" I stood up, placing my napkin on the chair. Olivia was loudly explaining how she was going to drive to a festival in her new car. My mother was watching her with pure adoration. I walked into the marble-tiled bathroom past the mirrors without looking at my reflection and locked myself in a stall. I did not cry. I did not shake. I took out my phone. I opened my secure folder and made 2 calls. The first was to John Weber, Grandfather Arthur's financial advisor in Chicago. He was expecting my call. "John, it's Elara Madison," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "Elara, Congratulations on your graduation. I saw your final transcripts you sent to Arthur. Impressive. Thank you, John. The reason I'm calling, I'm conducting my audit. You remember that account we discussed last week? The one with the $20,000 monthly disbursement? Of course, the Madison Linda Trust. Yes, my parents just gifted an $80,000 vehicle in a public setting, purchased from that account. I'm treating this as a direct violation of the irresponsible behavior clause we discussed with Arthur. He gave me clear instructions. There was a pause on the line. Then, so we are executing? Immediately, I said. Begin the process of transferring all remaining assets from that trust into the new one we established, excluding Linda and Mark as beneficiaries. Please also freeze all of their corporate cards tied to Arthur's account. Understood, Elara. It'll take 24 hours to lock them out completely, but I can stop any further transfers right now. Do it, I said. I hung up and immediately dialed the second number. Mr. Henderson, Arthur's family lawyer. Mr. Henderson, it's Elara. Miss Madison. I trust the celebration was satisfactory. The celebration was very informative. I've just instructed John Weber to execute Clause 7B of the will. I'd like you to draft the official notification to Linda and Mark of the immediate termination of all trust payments. Cite tonight's purchase of the Tesla as the final instance in a long pattern of fiscal recklessness. Henderson chuckled. I've been waiting for this call for 2 years. Elara, the notification will be on their doorstep by morning. Thank you. One more thing. Could you also send a repossession notice for the gift? That Tesla was purchased with funds they no longer have a right to. Consider it done. I stepped out of the stall, washed my hands with cold water, and looked at my reflection. My eyes were clear. I walked back to the table just as the waiter was bringing the dessert menus. Olivia was debating whether she wanted the creme brulee or the chocolate torte. I sat down. My mother looked at me. You look pale, honey. Everything all right? I'm fine, Mom. Just thinking, I said. I pulled 3 $20 bills from my wallet and placed them on the table, covering my steak and glass of wine. Thank you for dinner. It was unforgettable. I turned to my father. By the way, Dad, Grandfather Arthur called me earlier. He said the audit of his accounts is complete. He was very interested to see where all the money went. You should check your email in the morning. I think you'll find the report very thorough. My father's face twitched. An audit? What are you talking about? I smiled, picked up my $50 gift card, and stood up. Just practical matters, Dad. You know I'm good at it. I walked out of the restaurant, didn't look back, and left them to their desserts and the coming financial apocalypse. The collapse was faster than I expected, and louder. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. the next morning. The buzzing on my nightstand was so violent it sounded like an alarm. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. My father. Then again. Olivia. I let them ring while I made coffee. I sat on my small balcony, watching the sunrise over the Austin skyline, and finally, I listened to the voicemails. The first was my mother, her voice high and panicked. Elara, what did you do? My card was just declined at the grocery store. The grocery store! They said the account is frozen. This is your fault. Call me back. The second was my father, his voice a low, threatening growl. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you'd better call me back. Now, I just got an email from Henderson. This is insane. You have no right. Arthur would never. You're manipulating him. The third was Olivia, sobbing hysterically. They're taking the car. Elara, there's a man here from Tesla and he says the payment was fraudulent. He has the key. You have to call them. You have to fix this. My followers are watching. I sipped my coffee. It tasted perfect. By 10 a.m., they were at my apartment door. I lived in a modest one-bedroom complex near campus, the kind with thin walls. I didn't even have to look through the peephole. The entire building could hear them. Elara, open this door! My father roared, slamming his fist against the wood so hard I thought it would crack. You're a monster! My mother shrieked from the hallway. You're stealing from us! You're stealing from your own family! We'll have you arrested! My car! He's taking my car! Olivia wailed, her cries echoing in the stairwell. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, opened my laptop, and started applying for jobs in Chicago. The police arrived around 11:30 a.m. My neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, a kind, elderly Russian woman, had called them, reporting a disturbance. I watched from my window as two officers calmly explained to my red-faced father and weeping mother, "But this is a civil matter, sir, and you are trespassing." They confronted me later that day, catching me as I was walking to my car. They had waited for me in the parking garage, ambushing me by the elevator. "You're ungrateful?" My mother's voice was low and venomous, all the fake tears gone. "After everything we've given you, given me," I finally said, my voice echoing in the concrete garage, "you give me a $50 gift card. You took hundreds of thousands from grandfather Arthur. You took the money I earned from my own jobs to cover your debts, all while telling me I was the practical one. You were supposed to help," my father shot back, stepping toward me. "That's what family does. You're destroying us. Your mother is a wreck." "I'm a wreck," my mother cried, cueing the tears again. "Your grandfather's health is failing, and this stress, you're killing him, Elara. You're killing your father." "This is elder abuse? Elder abuse?" I almost laughed. "I'm the one who stopped the elder abuse. I'm the one who stopped you from draining his accounts to buy her a car." Olivia, who had been filming the confrontation on her phone, finally spoke. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me." That was the line, the one that severed the final thread. I looked at her, at my father's weak rage, at my mother's manipulative tears. "No, Olivia, I'm not jealous," I said, unlocking my car door. "I'm just balancing the books. You should be happy, Dad. As of today, your fiscally reckless lifestyle is no longer my problem or grandfather's." "You'll regret this, Elara!" my mother yelled as I got in the car. "You'll be all alone." I looked at her. I smiled, started the engine, and said, "No, Mom, I'll be free." I drove out of the garage and didn't look back. I didn't see them for 6 months. I moved to Chicago, immersing myself in the world that had always felt like home. Balance sheets, investment portfolios, and clear, undeniable numbers. Grandfather Arthur, despite his failing health, was as sharp as ever. Working with him was like breathing clean air after decades in a stuffy room. I managed his estate, and the first order of business was cleaning up the leaks. I sold the Austin condo he kept for my parents and moved the assets into a more secure trust. My name and his were the only ones on it. I paid his medical bills, managed his investments, and for the first time in my life, I felt what I had always been called, but never truly been valued. Then, one day in December, I got a text from Olivia. Not an apology, not a question, a demand. "Grandpa is dying," she wrote. "You need to bring him home. And BTW, Mom says you owe her $15,000 for emotional distress, or she'll sue." I scoffed, still playing the same game, even when the board was empty. I flew to Austin the next day, but not to my parents' house. I flew to Mr. Henderson's office for the official reading of the will. Arthur had passed peacefully 2 days earlier. When I walked in, they were already there, my parents and Olivia. They looked worn. My mother's designer clothes were replaced with something less flashy. My father's confidence was gone, leaving only exhaustion. Olivia just looked bored and angry. Elara, my mother hissed. So this is where you've been hiding. You kept him from us. He died alone. He died in Chicago, in his home, surrounded by nurses I paid for, I said calmly, taking a seat. He didn't want to see you. He left very clear instructions. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat and put on his glasses. Let's begin. The last will and testament of Arthur Madison is quite straightforward, he read. The assets, the charitable donations, the small gifts to distant relatives. And then he got to the main event. And all remaining and residual portions of my estate, including all holdings, properties, and liquid assets, I bequeath to an irrevocable trust, the sole beneficiary of which is my granddaughter, Elara Madison. Silence. A thick, suffocating silence, who was also named the sole executor of my estate. What? My father shot up from his chair, his voice cracking. That's impossible. We're his family. She's his daughter. Please sit down, Mark. Henderson said, his voice firm. There is one more clause. He turned the page. As for my daughter Linda and her husband Mark, to whom I have provided ample support for 3 decades, I leave them nothing but this advice. Stop spending money you do not have. As for my granddaughter Olivia sat up straight, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I leave her the exact item she seems to value most, and which her parents deemed a suitable reward for a life of no accomplishment. Henderson reached under the desk and pulled out a small, familiar cardboard card. A $50 gift card to Frank's Diner. Arthur arranged it himself last week. He said it was practical. Olivia's face twisted, the color draining from it. Is this a joke? That's nothing. He was a millionaire. It's a will, Henderson said, sliding the card across the table. Now, if the 3 of you will sign here, acknowledging you have been notified. My mother stared at me, her eyes burning with a hatred that was almost tangible. You did this. You snake. You manipulated a sick old man. You stole everything from us. I stood up, adjusting the blazer of my suit. I looked at the 3 of them, broken, furious, and finally accountable. I didn't steal anything, Mom. I just applied what you taught me. I was practical. I turned to Olivia, who was staring at the gift card in horror, as if it were covered in acid. By the way, Olivia, I heard the Tesla was repossessed. Such a shame, but if you need a ride, I hear the bus to Frank's runs every hour. I walked out of Henderson's office, and for the first time, the cold Austin winter air felt warm. They were right about one thing. Gratitude really does make life richer, and I was immensely grateful to finally be free.